Good evening and welcome to this special local government elections broadcast. My name is Vuyo Mvongo.
A very good evening to you. My name is Leanne Manus. Welcome. We're coming to you live from the Independent Electoral Commission's National Results Operations Centre at the 20 Event Centre that is in Pretoria.
Well, polling stations will close in less than an hour's time. So if you haven't voted yet, there's very little time left for you to do so. Of course, the Home Affairs Department as well is still open around that time up until 7 o'clock for those who still want ID documents or interim ID documents to be able to go and cast their vote.
Yeah, we have heard some stories of long queues around certain parts of the country, but we're going to be joined by Pansy Takula, who will talk us through that to find out if perhaps times will be stretched. And I'm sure if you're in the queue at 7 o'clock and you haven't voted yet, you will still be able to vote. So all of that is coming up on the show in a few minutes' time. But prominent party leaders have already cast their votes. They did so at various voting stations around the country. Edgar Mafa filed this report for us.
Among the early voters this morning was President Jacob Zuma, who cast his vote at his hometown of Nkandla in KwaZulu-Natal.
Casting the vote is one of the most important things that any citizen must feel proud of. I've just cast it in my own village with my villagers.
An early riser, though, was Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe, one of the first political leaders to cast his vote, when he arrived at Colbane voting station in Pretoria, minutes after the station opened.
There's no protocol that says, public officials should be at the head of the queue. Right. It's the right of those who came earlier to be at the head of the queue.
Not long after DA leader Helen Zille making her mark in St. Paul's Anglican Church.
It went very smoothly, everything worked perfectly. The IEC staff were very professional and it was a great experience.
Across the country, around about the same time, COPE leader Musiwa Lekota cast his vote in Bloemfontein.
It is quite clear that South Africans see that there's need for a very strong alternative opposition to keep the ruling party on their toes. But secondly, I think most important is that people really want to see a different set of men and women go into government and do something different from what the failures of the current party have been.
Also in Pretoria, at Arcadia Primary School, President of United Democratic Movement, Bantu Holomisa, cast his vote.
Indeed, it's always good to be given this opportunity to cast your vote and make sure that we strengthen our democracy.
In Boksburg, Gauteng, Kenneth Misho of the African Christian Democratic Party.
There are a number of councillors that have failed us, that have not done their job properly. But with my vote, I'm changing an irresponsible, lazy councillor with a good, hard-working councillor.
In KZN, the race for votes saw Inkatha Freedom Party leader Mangosuthu Buthelezi make his mark.
Any party that goes to elections goes there with confidence that they will do good. So in the same way that I've felt over the years, I feel that we've done our best, and the next, of course, is anybody's guess.
Not too far away was Zanele Magwaza Msibi, leader of the newly formed National Freedom Party, casting her vote.
People are going to be voting the NFP because they know that when given an opportunity, we do our best in servicing the communities.
Among the political leaders to vote early were the two Cape Town mayoral candidates. First, it was the ANC candidate, Tony Ehrenrecht, at Pinelands Town Hall in Cape Town.
Well, I'll be going around to all of the voting districts and to the voting stations to make sure that our people translate what is an overwhelming ANC support into an overwhelming ANC vote, because ultimately it's the amount of crosses you have in the box that determines it.
Then came Patricia de Lille, the DA mayoral candidate.
I'm honored to have been nominated to lead this beautiful city. We have put in our best.
In Polokwane, ANC Youth League President Julius Malema cast his vote at Mponegele Primary School at Masakane section of Seshego, accompanied by his grandmother, Sarah.
It is not mainly the issue of service delivery, which is a main problem. The main problem is unemployment and poverty. People go to school, they graduate, they can't find jobs.
Well, Democratic Alliance leader Helen Zille has expressed her concern at an election irregularity. She says she peaked during the voting process in the Nelson Mandela Bay in the Eastern Cape. She alleges that she saw at least 6 people at the Dispatch Town Hall voting station with just one ballot paper, as Yuri Blichno reports.
Zille says it is a serious transgression if people only receive the ward candidate ballot paper and not the proportional representation ballot paper, as this will affect the results. The issue was addressed by the presiding officer after a complaint was laid. But the same issue apparently occurred earlier in the day.
And we are now joined by the Chief Electoral Officer of the IEC, Advocate Pensi Tlakula. Good evening, Advocate.
Good evening, Vuyo.
I saw what the DA leader was claiming there. Are you aware of any irregularities that happened during the course of today?
Yeah, we have a few voting stations where fewer ballot papers were issued. In some voting stations, people were given, for instance, a PR ballot and district ballot and not a ward ballot and vice versa. But there are not many such cases. We are aware of them. We're going to be resolving them. We are going to be taking a decision on what's going to happen to those ballot papers, which ones are we going to count and which ones are we going to disregard.
Are these serious irregularities, or are these minor things that won't really affect the election or the perceptions of freeness and fairness?
It really depends on the numbers. For instance, in a voting station where you have 5,000 voters and only 139 voted wrongly, that won't affect the outcome. So we're going to be looking at specifics and whether the outcome of the election is likely to be affected by what has happened. So we're on top of that situation.
But are these normal irregularities? In other words, these are not things that are really so serious as to even nullify our election.
There are serious irregularities. I wouldn't want to trivialize them because, as you know, we've always said that in a metro, people are supposed to get 2 ballots. In a local municipality, they're supposed to get 3 ballots. And if that hasn't happened, it is an irregularity. I think the question is how material is that irregularity? And that will, of course, depend on the number of voters who cast a wrong ballot and the number of registered voters in that whole voting station or municipality.
Any idea as to the sort of timelines that you will need to make a decision on those issues?
Once the results are out, we'll then look at that. We'll isolate the voting stations where this particular practice took place, and then we'll then make a call.
Other than those that we are talking about now, are there any other, or is there any other category of irregularities or challenges that you've experienced?
The challenges now are the queues, but not everywhere. We are aware of long queues that are developing in Kayalisha, some parts of eThekwini, Richards Bay, and we're dealing with that situation. We are taking voting officials from voting stations that have no people and transferring them to the stations that have long queues. We're also putting the police on high alert so that once it gets dark, they have to ensure that people are safe. And in areas where we'll still have queues at 7 o'clock, we'll allow the last person on the queue to vote before we close the voting station.
So the last person on the queue at 7 o'clock will be allowed. In other words, those people will still continue to vote even after 8 o'clock.
Yes, even if that person is number 800 on the queue. Everybody who will be on the queue at 7 o'clock will be allowed to vote.
And what would you say are the successes of this election?
They've been,
today's proceedings in particular.
They've been by and large very, very peaceful. And you know, because this is an election, if you have 10 stations where things go wrong, we tend to exaggerate and paint a picture of gloom and chaos. There was no chaos. We're talking about 20,000 voting stations plus. And these incidents, if you count them, I don't even think that they happened in 50 voting stations. So we're confident our staff were on top of issues. issues. But in cases where we've had the type of challenges that you have just highlighted, we'll have to deal with those challenges.
And you are able to assure South Africans that no matter what happens, the IEC is in fact capable of handling virtually every situation that can come your way.
We're very transparent. The fact that I'm talking about these things to you, we have even reported these matters to the political parties. As you know, we've been meeting with the representatives of political parties. We've met them twice today. We're meeting them again at 9 o'clock. And together we try to find solutions to these types of problems. So we're on top of the situation. We're not hiding anything. Once there is a problem, we acknowledge it and we solve it.
Now, I know a lot has been said about the turnout, and it's probably too soon really to tell, but just from observing previous elections and from what you've seen and from what your provincial officers have been telling you, are we in for a much improved turnout this time around?
It's very difficult because what we have now is anecdotal evidence. In some instances we have long queues, as I've indicated in Khayelitsha. In some stations it's very quiet. I've just flown. I took a 15 minutes turn around in a helicopter not too long ago. I passed through Diepsloot, for instance. There were no queues, surprisingly. And then I passed through Crawford High School in Lone Hill. It was very long queues. And it was as late as about 4:30. So it's really anecdotal. We'll have to wait for the results to come in, and then we'll then tell you where the voter turnout. But we have put a target of 40%, and we're still confident that we'll reach that target.
Advocate Pensi Tlakula, thank you very much for talking to us and for taking part in this election program. Advocate Pensi Tlakula, of course, the Chief Electoral Officer of the IEC. Time now for a short break. Please do stay with us.
What's a good day to use Dettol? Monday, when she's a ballerina. Thursday, when I'm a teacher. Or maybe Saturday, when I'm a mother. It's every day, because germs never take a day off. Now new Dettol skincare with improved fragrance and added moisturizers gives you trusted protection from germs for healthy moisturized skin. Dettol. Be 100% sure every day.
Magnum Mini pleasures at home.
We're here to see how people react when they try new Colgate Sensitive Pro Relief. I'd like you to take a sip of this ice-cold water.
Oh, I don't like it.
I'd like you to rub this new toothpaste where you feel pain. Now drink the cold water again.
I hope it's going to work.
Go for it. How does that feel?
Wow, it was pretty quick. How does it work?
Well, the patented Pro Argent formula instantly seals open channels to the nerves. With daily brushing, you get long-lasting relief.
New Colgate Sensitive Pro Relief for instant and lasting relief. Prove it to yourself. Colgate, #1 brand recommended by dentists.
Well, we continue with our local elections program, coming to you live from the IEC Results Center in Pretoria.
Well, today millions of South Africans have exercised their hard-won democratic right to vote. And for most of them, and I'll add including myself, it was an absolute treat. Take a look.
Excited. I made the mark for the party that I wanted to.
I feel that I've done my part as a citizen of South Africa.
I didn't have a chance to register, so I didn't vote.
I'm coming from Limpopo, and right where I'm coming from, there's no water and electricity, so there's no point for me to vote.
I feel very proud for taking the step forward because I believe that's going to bring change in our communities. I didn't vote today because of if we vote, there's no changes, so it doesn't help to vote.
I'm feeling well. I'm feeling well that I did cast my vote. At least someone can depend on me.
I'm glad I did vote.
We have a chance to actually say something to our government. So, yeah, I'm very proud.
It feels a privilege and it's an honor to have made my mark.
I understood very well that my vote make a difference to where I live.
Oh, I feel so excited and I can't wait to hear the results.
I like that, a privilege and an honor to vote, because that certainly is what today's vote is all about. Well, joining me now is Professor Sekele Buhlungu, who is going to talk more about this. Good to have you in studio. Welcome to our show.
Good, thank you.
What did you make of today? I mean, having a look at it now, we're heading towards the closing of the polls. So far, what have you thought of the process?
Look, by all accounts, it's been a successful election. That's got to be said. I mean, there have been incidents. There have been kind of isolated incidents throughout the country. But in the larger scheme of things, they are totally insignificant. And I think we can say it's been a very extremely successful election indeed.
Yeah. Well, that's good. It's a feather in the cap of the IEC if one has to look at their role and their entire hold over the elections in South Africa.
Well, the IEC, this is the 8th election they've been running since 1994. If you take all the kind of national and local government elections that they've run, this is the 8th one. So what you're talking about there, you're talking about depth of experience, you're talking about a close grasp of issues, and you're talking about kind of an organization that is now deeply embedded in society in terms of the areas, the local areas, be it the big metros or the very, very minor, small local areas. So indeed, yes, there is. The other thing that's got to be said, of course, is that there's been stability in terms of the people in the IEC, both in terms of the commission as well as the full-time staff. So I think that's a good plus as well.
It is a huge plus. We've seen Ms. Begalia-Bum and Pansy Takula there the whole time. There haven't been changes. It's just been, as you say, stability.
I mean,
which
their
is
faces are
thing.
well, ordinary people. I'm sure they can relate to those faces immediately.
Let's talk about these elections. I think one of the strong points about these elections have been the fact that we've been hoping this was going to be one of the biggest turnouts ever when it's come to a local government election. I was listening to the interview with Pansy Takula, and they were saying they were looking at an estimate at this stage of a turnout of about 40%. Nobody can guess at this stage. It's impossible to tell.
Right.
But an estimate of 40%, and the last local government elections, 48%.
Yeah, right.
What is this telling us?
Look, I think it could be higher this time around. I think it could be. I mean, there's several factors that explain that. I think that there's been a lot of hype generated in the build-up to the election. Hype generated by service delivery protests. I mean, lots of people who are angry, but who are determined to use their vote to turn things around. So that's one factor, definitely. I think the opposition parties as well, especially the bigger ones, have been galvanized into action to believe at least that they can take a slice of the action if they put in enough effort there. So I think more people will probably come out, and I think the campaign, although it's been national in character, and we can talk about that, but I think the campaign has reached out to many, many people. And the forms of media, that's another thing that's very important here. It's not just radio, television, and print media. There's been these new forms of media now, social kind of social media, that are kind of very important as well.
So in your opinion, you're saying this has had a big effect on the elections this year?
I think so, absolutely. I mean, look, apart from your poster, your advert on TV and radio, there are now SMSs, there's Facebook, there's Twitter, there's all of these other things.
It's true. I mean, it's had a huge effect, and people are talking. People are really talking about
they
this.
They are talking. I mean, and this is new. Think of it. In '94, we didn't have that, or '95, local government elections. In '99, you didn't have, or 2000 rather, you didn't have it in 2006. Now you have it. It's there, and people are talking, and they don't go to rallies necessarily, but they're doing all sorts of other things.
Yeah, it's almost like a constant rally when you look at social media.
There's a kind of ongoing rally, yes.
Professor, let's look at the run-up to these elections and the campaigning that we did see. What did you make of the campaigning? Let's look at the ruling party first. We saw quite a lot of infighting within the ANC. Do you think this has had an effect on your voter? Do you think your voters looked in on this and thought...
Right. I think it has had a tremendous kind of effect. Okay, let's look at the ruling party. The infighting, a lot of people looked, and and they were shocked by some of the events, some of the happenings within the ruling party. The kind of trading of insults, of accusations, the plots and counterplots, and all of those things. I mean, obviously, it has had a kind of an impact on morale within. But I think, ironically though, I suspect it may have actually prompted many people to say, I'm going to go and vote and change things. Either vote for an opposition party or vote for people within the ruling party, whatever the case. But the infighting has had the effect of the ruling party got off very late after starting blocks relative to all the other parties. I mean, you can see it. You can see their posters are very drab. The posters they put up, they don't have the big kind of banners. They don't have the big, the wraparound, building wraparound kind of things that they had last time. It's been very low key. And also it's revolved around a few personalities. It's either Julius Malema or Julius has been the most visible face, actually, come to think of it. And then, of course, the president and a few other personalities. Now, with the other parties, I think the DA has run, I think, if you compare to all the other parties, probably the most impressive, the most visible campaign in this election. Yeah, but otherwise the problem has been, for me, that it's been run at the national level. The issues, as opposed to the issues. You know, I want so-and-so to run, to go and fix my school, to go and fix the road, to go and fix the toilets. It's been run here, and so suddenly these things on the ground kind of came up in dribs and drabs, really.
Well, Professor, time will tell, and that time is right upon us, actually, because polls scheduled to close at 7 o'clock this evening. So if you haven't gone out to vote, my advice to you is run out there. Quickly find your station that you're registered to vote in. Go stand in the queue, because we have got word that you are allowed to vote. If you're in that queue at 7 o'clock and you haven't voted, you're still allowed to vote, because everyone standing in the queue is allowed to vote. Thank you very much, Professor, for being our guest here on this special election program. And of course, we'll have more news after the break. You stay tuned to us.
Sigeleli Africa Malupagani Suponolayo Israeli Tanda Zoyetu. Sounds so cold to come together. And united we shall stand. Let us stand and strong for freedom. In South Africa,
Welcome back, everybody. We are with you with more election news now.
Well, the SABC is set to use its election results system from tonight. The public broadcaster is able to accurately predict election outcomes as municipal election results come in. The SABC, together with the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, CSIR, have developed an excellent election results prediction system.
Top-of-the-range equipment to ensure that South Africans get the news as it happens. But not only that, the SABC is also able to predict election results. Its system is developed for SABC's editorial needs and is linked directly to IEC's results database.
Allows the SABC analysts to analyze the data and the results. It is a known fact in South Africa that people vote according to certain demographic profiles. In other words, a person will vote for a certain party if he has a certain income and if he has a certain level of education. So our system allows the SABC to go look at the results, and if a party received a certain vote, it will be able to see why in that particular area the party received that vote.
With as little as 10% of the votes counted, this system will be able to predict the winners of various metros and local councils. It did so during the 2009 national elections. The SABC was able to predict the final voting outcome within hours of receiving the preliminary results. Analytical features of the system will be able to determine voting patterns and trends.
The way the system works is that we take the initial results that come in, and based on past patterns in voting, as well as patterns in income distribution, we're able to extrapolate to the areas that haven't voted what the results will be. So even though the initial results may not reflect the final results, using this method we can adjust what those outstanding voting districts, we can predict what their results will be, and then put that all together with a final prediction.
The results will be available on special SABC TV and radio shows from tonight. Information can also be retrieved from sabcnews.com, Newsbreak and SABC Mobile. Yudison Jamela, SABC News, Pretoria.
It's a fantastic system we've got in place for you, so you're all going to be seeing it soon throughout the night. Remember that SABC does continue throughout this evening. It's a broadcast where the results will be coming in and we'll be sending them out to you. So you see, we are linked up with the IEC, so it really is as it happens.
You will be back at 7:30.
Yes,
is that correct?
And you'll be back at 8.
Yes.
Yeah, long night ahead, everybody. Take care. We'll see you again at 7:30. Have a lovely evening till then.
Goodbye.